All right, in this video, you are going to learn how to write 3 different equations for one single line. Now, why would we need 3 equations? Well, what I want my students to be able to do is work out of all different types of forms that we write linear equations in. We write them in slope-intercept form, we write them in standard form, we write them in point-slope form. So making connections about what's the same or similar and what's different about each one of the 3 equations we're going to be writing. So what I would start with here is I would tell my students to just list out 3 different forms that we know. We know y equals mx plus b. You should know ax plus by equals c, standard form. And the last one, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We call that point slope form. So each one of these helps us determine different things. We use standard form when we're talking about our intercepts. We'll use slope intercept if we are given a slope and a y-intercept, or we know our constant rate of change. And then point slope is like if you know only one of the points and the rate of change or the slope. Okay, so let's start with the basic one. Most kids are going to be just fine with writing a slope-intercept form equation. That's the easy one in my opinion. All they have to do is find the b. We call that the y-intercept. For those of you that are new to slope-intercept form, the y-intercept is always where are you crossing on the y-axis. So all I got to do is I got to look and find that dot right there. That's where the line is crossing the y-axis, and it appears it's crossing at 2. So if I'm going to write this equation, I'm going to say y equals, and then way over here at the end, I could say plus 2. Positive 2 because it's up 2 spaces, not down. If it was down there, we'd be saying minus 2. Now we got to figure out what number we attach to the x. That number is always going to be your slope. Slope is just your rise over run between dots. So how far up and how far over did we go to get from one dot to the other? So if you look at this dot right here, it appears that we're back 3, up 1, and then to get to that dot there, we would have to go up 1, over 3. So we are rising 1, running 3. So my slope would be 1/3. We just created our first equation, but you're being asked to make 3. So you got to be able to make a standard form as well as a point slope form. Well, point slope and slope intercept, they both have this m, and that m is representing the slope. So if I'm going to write my second equation, but in point slope form, my slope's not going to change. It's the same line, meaning the slope, the rate of change, is also the same. So let's write our point slope equation down. Y minus y1 is going to be left for our y coordinate. We'll figure out that in a second. But let's just get our slope written down, which is the same as the slope as up here, because we're dealing with the same line. If slope here was 1/3, slope here also has to be 1/3. X minus x1, I would write as x minus, and then you can leave this space empty. So notice where the x1 and the y1 are. I left those 2 spaces empty because I got information I got to plug into there. The information I'm going to be using comes from a point. Hence the name point slope form. We already know the slope, rise 1, run 3. But now, is there a point that we could use on this line? I would use that point right there. It's at -3, positive 1. Start at the center, back 3, up 1. So this point, which is at -3, positive 1, is going to be what we're going to use to finish this equation out. So -3 is my x number, 1 is my y value. So that -3 needs to go where the x1 goes. So I'm going to put a -3 right here. That would make double negatives, which means this is going to have to be written out as plus instead of minus a negative. We'll change that in a second. My y value, or my y coordinate for the dot we're using, the point that we're using, is 1. So I'm just going to squeeze a 1 in to the parentheses right there, and now I can erase those parentheses. Grouping symbols go away. You just have y minus 1 on the left side. On the right side, remember, double negatives are really just a positive, so I'm going to erase that and change it to +3. And we'll be done with that equation. We now have an equation in slope-intercept for this line, an equation in point slope for this line, And then the last and final one we have to come up with is ax plus by equals c. This is one that my students struggled with a little bit today. They're like, how do we make a standard form equation from this? Well, a lot of times you're just gonna wanna use your slope-intercept form equation. So I'm gonna rewrite y equals 1/3 x plus 2. And what do we notice about standard form? X term and y term are both on the same side together. So if we can take this equation and just move this x term over to the same side that the y is at, we will have put it in standard form. So how would you get rid of a positive 1/3 x? What's the opposite of 1/3 x? We're going to take 1/3 x away. If it's a positive 1/3 x, minus 1/3 x would cancel. But if you take 1/3 x away on the right, we also have to take 1/3 x away on the left. Now, these are not like terms, so we just want to write them down as two separate terms. A negative 1/3 x and a positive y. So negative 1/3 x positive y equals, you still have a 2 on the right side of the equal sign. So 2 would go right there. And this would be our third and final equation. We've written a slope-intercept equation for the line, point slope form equation for the line, and last but not least, standard form equation for the same line. Now you should be able to go from lines to equations or equations to lines, depending on what your teacher is asking for you to do. This will help you have a strong understanding. If you're only good at slope-intercept, that's a good start, but you need to be able to work out a point slope as well as standard. Typically, your teachers will start you here with this, introduce you to standard form, finish it with point slope form, and by the time you are done, you are a linear equation magician. You can do whatever it is you need to, whether it's graphing, solving, replacing. Do what you want. Study hard and good luck on your upcoming test.